too. There we go.
There we go.
You are now live.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you. Do we have any public participation?
As of right now, no.
Excellent. All right, so welcome all. Today is Thursday, May 26th, and our monthly Board of Ethics meeting. We are going to go start with the roll call. And first, before we get to everybody else, we have a new board member with us, and we'd like to welcome Pat. I will let her pronounce her last name for us so I don't butcher it. And then Pat, would you just tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in Norwalk, family, professional background, just to get us to know you a little.
Well, certainly. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Pat Agudo. You just dropped the W is silent, but technically it's Agudo, but my former mother-in-law dropped that and made it Agudo. So I have lived in Norwalk since I was in my 20s. So I've been here for 40 years or no, 30 years. Sorry, no, getting close to 40. And Rolling Ridge was my first home. And I've lived in the Cranberry section, and now I'm over here in West Norwalk on Richards Avenue. So there's a lot of activity going on here for planning and zoning, let's put it that way. And on that count, I do not have an actual family. I am single and I have no children. So my family was corporate life, and I have just retired a little bit early from corporate America, where I spent 45 years in the human resources field and in many industries. So I've been in telecommunications, and which led on to high tech, all types of communications. And I've worked with IT&T, with Transwitch, with a solar technology as well, with which in the solar company, I did do lobbying in DC for solar energy. Worked with Jim Himes quite a bit. He was a great proponent of solar when he was a freshman congressman. I have also worked in reinsurance, and my last stint in corporate America was in manufacturing. And I have been in leadership roles since about my mid-30s and leading global teams all over the world. So it's been a fabulous career from that vantage point, but I'm really excited now to be involved with all of you in government. That's been, I'm a political science minor in my career, journalism major, and then a management major. And I also work with Open Doors organization. I just joined them, and I'm doing 2 or 3 things with them, almost 3. I'm about hopefully going to go on their workforce development and help people who are looking for jobs. And now I do Community Closet, and we just finished doing the benefit gala. So that's a little bit about me. When I moved to Norwalk, I fell in love with it because it wasn't big city Stamford, as Stamford was very focused on building their corporate tax base. And I've watched, Norwalk change and grow and adapt over the decades. So I'm very excited to participate. And
thank you.
I have a lot. Hope I have something to offer that will be helpful.
No, it sounds like you will. Congratulations on the early retirement.
Thank you.
We will definitely look to take advantage of your knowledge and years of expertise and leadership in corporate America. It'll be a great asset to add to us. We always appreciate fresh eyes and fresh blood. So feel free to speak up, ask questions, get caught up to speed, nothing too silly. What we'll be doing tonight is reviewing PowerPoint presentations that we individually created that ultimately we want to present to employees and elected officials of the city. So you'll get to see our process behind the scenes, start to learn about the code, and that type of stuff. But again, feel free to chime in, ask questions, and we're happy to answer and get you caught up to speed. But it doesn't need to be all in this meeting. It can be slowly over the course of the summer into the fall. So no rush. You don't have to memorize it by the end of the week.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Additionally, you're welcome. Additionally, we have Cara Murphy here. We have Geraldo Williams with us.
Hello.
And
Hello.
Mickey, and Mickey Colazar as well. And is there anybody else I'm missing that's logged in?
Michael, hi, Lori Toronto here. I'm on the phone.
Yep, I see it. It just says your number. Great, Lori. Happy to have you with us. Thank you.
Hi,
So
Lori.
Lori Toronto's here as
Hi,
well.
Hi, Lori. Hi, Geraldo.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Brian. Hi, Laurie.
So
Hi,
why don't
Geraldo.
we?
Howdy.
Excellent. So why don't we go, do we have a motion to accept the minutes from last month's meeting?
So moved, Cara Murphy.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? And Patty and Lori will abstain because they weren't here last meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, correct.
Yep. Excellent. So that's that. Now we can get right into our planned agenda, which is reviewing the slides that were created by us individually. And since this is the first time we're doing this, we'll trial and error it, meaning let's be open and candid, respectful of the people that created it. Since we each did our own pod, let's not compare and contrast. I'll speak for myself. I welcome constructive criticism. When I did this from scratch, I'm not sure how I want to see the final outcome. So I want us to put our minds together and keep in mind that we'll be using this to present. Think of a YouTube 10-minute clip, 15-minute clip of going through each pod. Pat, just to give you a quick backstory, we decided, or we felt that doing 1 hour on the board, on the code of ethics, people would start to go to sleep and not pay attention to a whole hour. So we broke it up into about 5 pods. And we felt if we did 10, 15-minute clips, somebody could watch it on part of their lunch break and then another part of a lunch break and not have to do it all at once. And so tonight is we did this as homework. So tonight is our first time seeing what each of us has done and trying to help each other and then ultimately have one unified document. And so it's not 5 random presentations, but so that they're cohesive.
Very good.
Hey, Michael, can I interrupt you quickly?
Yes.
I'm having very bad service problems for some reason. And if we've been on 10 minutes, I've been only on 4 of them. Everybody keeps fading out. I tried to get it on my computer screen. That's why you see my name up there twice. Unfortunately, my computer doesn't have a camera or a microphone. So, and my iPhone, which is a pretty new iPhone, for some reason, you're fading in and out. So if you don't
Now you are.
hear
Oh,
from
okay.
me, it's because I'm losing.
We're losing you too, Mickey.
Yeah. No, Mickey, we appreciate the effort. If it ends up being an issue, log off. If logging in keeps being an issue, don't stress yourself out tonight. I know you sent in your pod and we'll review it and catch back up with you next month. So if you are able to stay, great. Otherwise, have a happy Memorial Day and we'll chat with you. Yep. He's frozen. Cool.
He's frozen.
Moving on. Brian, would you be able to put up pod 1, whoever pod 1 was, or whichever pod, if you want to pick one and just put it up?
Which one do you want to start with? You want to start with the one that's 32-1?
Oh, actually, if you have your agendas on your own computer, we could just start with 32-1. Brian, if you wouldn't mind just putting that on the screen for those that might not have it in their agenda.
Sure.
Oh, you have it in PowerPoint. That's great.
I figured that if people wanted me to make changes, I could make the changes here and then email them back to whoever has the pod.
Yeah, and don't mind me looking away from the camera. I'm actually looking at another screen that's bigger that I can see it clearer. So I sorry for the side of my face. This chapter. Is this the one Mickey did? I'm guessing.
Let me double
Well,
check. Hold on one
I know
second.
Cara didn't do it. I know Geraldo didn't do it.
Mickey did, I don't believe Mickey did. Hold on. Mickey did pod 3.
So did I do this one? Somebody did. This.
I got this, Michael, I got this from you.
From Michael Church.
Cool.
This,
All right.
this
So
might not be, I don't know if this is the one. Hold on one second.
Yep. No. This is.
Yeah,
I'll take credit.
I can't tell. I'm trying to find the email, but there's
No. This works.
okay.
I have a lot going on. Don't remember everything I've done. So one of the things that I'll critique on myself, and I welcome you guys with fresh eyes, is I might have put too much information. So Pat, just to give you, we have the code of ethics, and then which is all the legalese, and then we have a citizen's guide that's essentially layman's terms for residents to be able to walk through the code of ethics without being confused by all the legalese. And so without, some parts are just redundant when we do the presentation. We're not looking to reinvent the wheel. We have all the material, I think, and I welcome others' constructive criticism. I might have went overboard on stating the obvious on some of the PowerPoints. Maybe that's what we choose to do. But I pretty much wrote out what was there. And so we may choose to paraphrase it more and ad lib as we're talking in the presentation, rather than me just reading everything I wrote that copies it. But that, without having went through everybody else's pods, as I was doing it, I was thinking I might be too redundant or putting it in, although we have to feel when we make this presentation that they may not have read the code of ethics, they may not have read the citizen's guide, they may choose to go for the video format first, and so this might be their first introduction. So try to keep it engaging but also informative without skipping necessary parts. So since I apparently did this, I will quickly walk through, and on each slide, I welcome, at the moment, I'm not so concerned about grammar for any of us. It's more content. So I will just walk through the slide and then feel free to critique. So.
Michael, can I ask a question?
Yep.
It's Lori. It might be a good idea because it'll be a lot for us to absorb. I can't even see it, unfortunately, because I'm in by phone. But if after the meeting tonight, we could get copies of everybody's, and then we could all take a look at editing each other's stuff. And of course, you don't have our stuff yet, but it might be good. And then at our next meeting, we can have, like some conversation about edits that we all think might enhance what everybody's done.
Yep, no, absolutely agree with you. So the stuff that we are reviewing right now is actually in your email already. Okay,
thanks.
Yep, and yes, I do think that's what we'll end up doing between now and next meeting as well. But while we're here, we'll be able to have a group conversation of what we're initially thinking, so that we don't have 5 different edits and different concepts of where we're going with this. I'm going to be the guinea pig, and yes, it will be difficult for you on the phone initially, but I'm going to be the guinea pig going through my slides first, and then seeing how we may want to present it. Is it, adding more words, adding less words, et cetera, and then going from there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You got it. Go back to Brian. All right, so the first slide is essentially the title. This chapter is referred to as the Code of Ethics. It gives you backstory on who is in charge of the Code of Ethics, and that's where the Common Council comes in. The Common Council established an independent committee. It explains who we are, 5 members, 2 alternates, and we're known as the Board of Ethics. The Board of Ethics, further known down the road as the board, shall be appointed by Common Council and comprised as provided in section 3212, which we'll get to later. For a first slide, without, is it good to state who we are and how we were formed, etc.? It's open to the floor.
I think it's best to be concise. I think what you have is concise enough. I don't know if you're asking to add to this page, to add more. I think this communicates enough from my perspective. Tells who we are, puts the link with the Common Council. And the details are in the Code of Ethics itself. This gives you a good summary.
Excellent.
Mike,
My vote would be to get rid of it.
Your goal would be to get rid of what, Lori?
Yeah, the background about us, because I think the things that are going to be most, important are the things that are germane to them. Like, okay, we have this is the code, this is the law, and this is what you guys, are going to be evaluated against. I think if they want to read it, they can get the background, but if we're looking to cut stuff, I think that might be something for brevity's sake we could eliminate.
Noted. Cara, go ahead.
I think that for now, as a working document, it's fine. And I wouldn't edit it, but once we have the full document, that we may end up editing certain things out of here, as Lori stated. But I think for now, it's better to have too much and then take it out than try to go back later on and put stuff.
Agreed. So think of this like a movie, or for those of you that have ever recorded 2 hours of footage for a 5-minute clip. To both of your points, it's always easier to cut out and have too much information than have it too sparse and have to figure out what we're adding back in. So yes, noted. Brian, let's go to the second slide. So 32-2 is the declaration of policy. It talks about who are officers, who are employees, and it covers that. It just helps them out with it. Officers and employees must refrain from personal, business, and financial activities. The principles are established in the Code of Ethics. It applies to all city officers and employees. So it helps in the code itself with the definitions of these things. Let's go to the next page, and we'll ultimately, I think, actually, I'll open it to the floor. Does going slide by slide too slow, or do we just want to get a feel for how it's looking now before we go back and comment initially?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Do we have a second from Geraldo or Cara? Or different thoughts?
Your pleasure, whichever you want to do.
Yeah, I don't mind running through it, just to be conscious of the time. We don't have that many of us here.
Yeah, no, I think I don't think we're gonna get through it all tonight. As you guys know, I'd like to get us out of here as close to 8 as possible. So I'm gonna go read through. If anything glaring stands out, we could stop, but I think tonight, let's just get a feel for it. Get a feel for how we want to go back this next month and, fine tune it, if you will. And, so we can have a uniform thing. I don't want to spend the whole time on just my slides. I want to see what Cara and what Mickey did as well, to compare and contrast and see. We might like how they did it better than how I did it, which is perfectly fine. So for right now, I'm gonna just kind of go through these so we could see mine, and then we'll get to Cara's and Mickey's in the same fashion. And then at the end, I want to leave 5 to 10 minutes just for discussion on how we now that we've seen a couple samples, how we want to move forward and make it somewhat more cohesive, if that works. Go ahead, Geraldo.
I'm just gonna suggest that maybe in the future, we have something that is a side by side that we can see what the code of ethics section for this looks like, so we know what you're summarizing. Otherwise, we are just seeing what you're doing and accepting it, but it's,
Hold on.
we don't know what you're.
I'll do it right now. Hold on.
We don't, I was gonna say we could do that in between. I don't know that we'll be able to keep up with it as we're doing it, but since Brian is a technical wizard, we'll give him that shot.
We're on 32 too, right?
Yep.
All right.
I have to say, as a newbie, when I was reading some of all these pods, I had a chance yesterday. I learned a lot about how I did learn an awful lot about how government code of ethics are, because they're, I was saying this to Brian, they're slightly different than you find in corporate code of conduct and ethics. And they, you know, they need to be, there's different focuses. So I learned a lot.
Excellent. I'm happy to hear that. Are we waiting on you, Brian, or
That's already up there.
oh, you just had the one slide? We don't see the side by side.
So here's the, so the slide is, can you guys see the code of
No.
ethics is on? No?
That's what
No.
I'm saying. We could only see the slide. We don't see your other page.
Oh, interesting. All right, well then I can't, apparently I can't do that.
Cool. I rescind my tech guru status, but appreciate the effort.
No problem.
Okay, so for Geraldo, I do understand what you're requesting, and I think that's what we'll do when we take this back and review it, and to Lori's point, make edits as we move forward, because it's possible that I've missed very key parts of 32.2. But
Michael, if
Brian-
you would like, when I send out, I'll send everyone out the grouping of all the things that we discussed today. And then I will send out a version of the entire code of ethics as well, so that people can compare them side to side, either by printing them out or looking on their own computer.
Sounds good. Let's go to the next slide. 32.4, conflicts of interest, interference with duties, prohibited interest, and exceptions to all of that. We gotta love exceptions. Officers and employees should avoid engaging in any business or transaction and should refrain from direct or indirect interest regarding the matter. In the event that an officer or employee has a known conflict, she shall disclose it in writing to the city clerk. If such conflict is material, she shall recuse him or herself from taking an action. Next slide. Officers, I'm not going to read through each one. I don't think that's good use of our time. Go to the next section, if you don't mind. Ultimately, I want to get to Cara and Mickey's options as well, not belabor my own section. You get a feel for what I've done. Go to page 6, next slide. All these are the subsections, and it just goes on. This is a wordy portion covering exceptions and different nuance.
So just to jump in for
Yep.
Pat, Michael.
Yep.
So Pat, you'll see in each of the pods, you'll see that one of the sections typically stand out from the others in terms of complexity or size. So obviously 32.4 conflicts of interest, 32.8 gifts, 32.12, which you'll see that Cara did. Those are really the biggest ones, either in terms of size or complexity. And you'll see that in each of these pods, there's complex ones and then there's simpler ones. And so that should help everyone in terms of perhaps focusing their attention on the ones that perhaps need the most eyesight on them.
Okay. Thank you.
Next slide. I don't want to go through all of 32.4. We get a feel for it.
So we are through all the 7 slides of 32.1, 2, and 4, Michael.
Excellent. So can you pull up one of either Cars or Mickey's or? Do you know, is this Car or Mickey? Was one of this yours?
This is Mickey's.
Mickey, are you live? Do you want to just walk us through what you did, your thought process?
So my thought process, can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can.
Okay, good. Well, hopefully so. My thought process was I was trying to somewhat summarize the actual 32.7, although most of 32.7 you can see right in front of you. But again, in my thought process, I was thinking, okay, if I were presenting this slide for recording, for live, whatever, that it might take, just reading this alone might take 3 or 4 minutes or more. And it's hard for me to get something that's 2 pages long to be 3 or 4 minutes, because usually when you present a slide, at least when I do, the few times I've presented to different organizations, you end up expounding upon the first sentence, and you may take 10 minutes for a slide. So that's my only concern, not only just for me, but for all these other slides. I had a hard time thinking that we're going to try to keep this to a certain time frame. So to Lori's point, we're just going over the basics tonight, and this, the presentation is going to be developed over a period of meetings, I guess. But in any event, so that's sort of a comment. So this,
real quick, Mickey, and so to expound on your own thought, as we've arbitrarily come up with 10 to 15 minutes for different quote unquote pods. We may end up for 32.4, 32.8, 12, even 32.7 maybe. We may end up realizing it's 20 minutes or more per pod, or for some of the longer ones, and then other ones might be 3 to like the definition section. You might, walk through that in 2.5 minutes, because that's pretty self-explanatory regarding definitions. So we may end up saying, instead of being 60 minutes as a collective, it may end up being an hour and a half as a collective, but 20 minutes. So that might be something as we work through this, Mickey, to your point, that as long as it's,
okay.
This is dry material, so we don't want to expound too much, but by expounding some, it might give color. And so we might end up finding out that certain sections warrant, more of a 20 minutes and keep them engaged, because we're giving them backstory, context, feedback.
Michael, just to jump in real quick, I don't know if it makes sense to do each of these sections, 32, 1, 32.2 as separate videos, obviously combined together so people can select whatever chapter they want to, but they could say, all right, well, I'm going to watch 32.1 because it's only 2 minutes, but 32.12 is going to take 15 minutes by itself. And so they'll still be able to go through all of them. They'd still have to go through all of them, but we're not hamstringing maybe sections by saying, all right, well, it's 15 to 20 minutes. Whereas if we do them individually, some might only be a minute or two long, like you said, and others might be longer. And then people can decide, oh, I'm going to do 1 or 2 sections today. It gives them an option. Instead of having to sit down for 20 minutes, they could literally do 1 section a day for 2 weeks and get them all done if that's what they wanted.
Yep, agreed. All right, so Mickey, you gave us some backstory. Why don't you just talk through a slide or two, and then we'll give Cara a shot on some of hers, and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, one other piece of backstory, what I had emailed to Brian had 3 typos, which maybe some of you will pick up as you're going through this quickly, or maybe not, but I've since corrected them. But anyway, this is the first draft. So officer employee shall not attempt to influence any other officer, employee, or agency concerning the handling of any matter or transaction. And then it goes on to give some other prohibitions and limitations down in the sort of 3/4 of the way down. It is limited to communications with an officer, employee, or agency responsible for the matter on behalf of the city. It's responsible and necessary in terms of customary conduct of the matter, and is limited to lawful means in terms available to members of the general public, generally in similar circumstances. Those are the well, anyway, and the law department of the city, this is something I think, well, who cares about this? But the law department of the city shall assist the Board of Ethics in implementing, et cetera, et cetera. So that's it for page 1. Page 2, again, basics, officer employees shall not disclose confidential city information unless otherwise required by federal, state, or local law. Officer employees shall not use any confidential city information for his advantage, et cetera, financial or otherwise, or personal. No employee shall be required to participate in political campaigns, although they're allowed to. And that's it for that. That's a summary of it anyway. Of 32(7).
Oh, this is a good one, Mickey.
So prohibitive gifts actually could generate an awful lot of discussion. Again, depending upon how this presentation takes place, I can see people raising their hands as you're going through all these different gifts. That doesn't prohibit the following: gifts of social courtesies related to a family relationship or established personal relationship. Kind of funny, today I was at a golf outing in Sterling Farms, and the Attorney General was there, and somebody gave him a jacket, and he questioned whether he could receive the jacket or not. So I found that interesting.
Real quick, and this would be a section, to your point, Mickey, that would be great, I think, in the presentation to, again, expound on each sentence or give examples of real life situations that say, okay, this is, something that's acceptable. This is something not acceptable. And this is a gray area that you might need to ask for a consultation on, depending on the nuance.
And if I may,
Yes.
this one really intrigued me, because there will be parts of gifts also that could be considered income to people. So that adds a different complexity to it. For later down the road, we should look at that factor with it, because I really like the way this is broken down.
Excellent.
But certain cash awards like gift cards or things that are over a certain value have to be reported as income. In corporate world, I'm not quite sure about government world, which usually has more eye focus on it because of lobbyists and different things, people trying to get influence, which is what this is about. So
that's exactly what this is about.
yes, trying to
Well,
keep
so
that
Pat,
out
to
there.
give you some backstory, we did spend a lot of time talking on this section,
Oh, good.
and this is what I summed it up by saying the nuance with Mickey is when we discussed it, it's, well, if I invited a certain person to my wedding and they gave me an extravagant wedding gift, but now, have we been friends for 20 years, or then next month did I vote on something that gave them a big government contract? And
Gotcha.
so that's where the nuance part of it comes in is, well, if I'm lifetime friends with them, then that's one thing, and they didn't get a big government contract that I voted on the next month. Or, gee, I've known them for 5 years professionally, but I invited them to my wedding and they got me a yacht in Florida, type thing. And suddenly they end up with $1 million plus contract, so that's where the nuances, and we can't, as we created the document or revised the document, just to give you some more backstory, we can't cover every topic in it. So we kind of try to hit a few and then say, ask for an opinion based on your specific circumstance. And this is where, as Mickey does this presentation, perhaps hit on a few of the more common, it says the property value exceeding 150. Well, something that frequently comes up is getting invited to nonprofit events and your tickets covered, the dinner ticket or this and that. And going through that type of scenario. Proceed, Mickey. You can pop through this.
All right. At the bottom, we have the customary performance or merit awards, really probably of no value. But then we have certificates, plaques, awards having not more than $300 given to officers or employees as part of an official recognition or incentive program. next slide is has some additional exceptions. Meals and refreshments provided to an officer employee, goods or services provided by the city, et cetera. I won't read the rest of them. And the thing I think was important with this one, well, for us, it's probably not important for the presentation, is that we are going to periodically review these dollar amounts.
Well, and I think actually, I would counter to that, Mickey, and say, part of the presentation, I might actually highlight that and say, this is subject to review, periodically by us. And also feel free and keep hammering on, ask for an opinion based on your own specific instance in advance.
Okay, so that's
Yep.
the
Next slide.
3 sections that I covered. And this is incurring of cost by Board of Ethics and staff. To Lori's point, I'm not sure we should even use this. I mean, maybe it's as part of something else, but I can't almost see us spending time presenting this to, members of the city, employees or staff. But in any event, it just talks about costs so that we all know that our budget is through the Corporation Council's budget. We get a certain amount of money to help us if we need to hire outside counsel, to print these things online, to have the person that's taking the recording, and so on. That's a summary of what this all says. And I'm not sure if the people care about that.
No, I think you and Lori brought it up first, so I'll allow her the credit as well. But yes, I think this might be something that ends up on the chopping block. But it's good to have and have this dialogue amongst us.
Yep.
Is there another section, or are we going to jump to cars now?
That's it. Jump to Cara.
Excellent.
I think Geraldo wanted to say something, but he's
Oh.
on mute.
Yep, go ahead, Geraldo. Geraldo, you're on mute. Geraldo.
You're on mute.
Okay.
I hear you.
Geraldo, you're on mute.
He knows that. He can hear us.
I don't.
There you go.
I kept hitting the unmute and it just wouldn't go. I just said, I agree with what you're saying. That last page, I don't think we need that. But I had one question, and I don't know where we ended up with that. On the first page, where it said you cannot solicit or receive gifts of so much amount. I don't recall this thing, the Code of Ethics remained enough to look at that, saying you could then solicit gifts. So the question would be, could you solicit gifts of $100 a day? You're saying like you shouldn't solicit or receive.
So
Gifts
you're
of,
talking about the collective, not the one-off. It's under 150.
yeah, but I'm saying
but
now soliciting. One is receiving, so I understood that and agreed. We had spoken about that, but the wording said you should not solicit or receive. I don't recall, the soliciting part.
Okay. We'll look back into that.
Yeah.
And that's a good,
Just a note on that.
yep, nope, appreciate it.
Thing, right?
Sorry. You can go ahead, Karen.
Go to the next slide.
You're gonna do 3212? No.
While Brian's loading that up, go ahead, Brian. Do you want to ask something?
No, I can go to 3212. I was just gonna do 3217 because it was,
Oh, okay. I mean, we could do that too.
all right. I just figured it was easier for Cara to get through.
It's one slide, I think.
Yeah, hold on. I gotta find it again.
Just real quick, while Brian's setting that up, never mind, I'll wait till after. Go ahead.
Okay, so just rewinding a bit on, since I do 3212 and 3217, when I did these slides, I was trying to keep in mind that they have to be easily digestible for everyone, whether you're an elected official, an appointed official, a municipal employee, or because the city of Norwalk is subject to the Freedom of Information Act, a member of the public. So while we may want to cut down on certain slides, since we know that the public may be looking at these slides and or watching our videos at some point, we need to keep in mind that while a municipal employee might not care about certain things such as who is paying for outside counsel for the board or the reasonable legal expenses, that is something that is generally important to the public because they want to know how their tax dollars are spent. So when I did these slides, I tried to make them in a summary fashion that explains everything and is easily digestible. So for 3217, it's a very short section anyway, but I just condensed it down to make it as concise as possible. That, you know, the person bringing the complaint and the person who's responding to the complaint are represented by counsel at their own expense. However, the respondent, the person who is complained against, if they don't violate the code, the Board of Ethics may recommend under circumstances that the Common Council reimburse the respondent's reasonable legal expenses. And I think reasonable is probably the key. You know, if the response attorney is charging $400 an hour, that's different than if the response attorney is charging $1,500 an hour. So, and so it's all a question of what is reasonable under the circumstances, and also a budgetary concern because of the appropriations that are done earlier in the year, depending on when the complaint comes through. Also, that any reimbursement by the Common Council is entirely discretionary. And as I said, subject to available funding within the budget. So it's a very simple section. And actually, there was another section on the effective date of the code that I didn't bother doing a slide. So I just cut that out myself.
Yep. And just while Brian's loading the next one up, Pat, just to give you, I'll just jump in here real quick and follow through on this. To give you a quick backstory on the rest of us, Cara and Mickey are our resident legal experts. They are both attorneys and amazing. Geraldo is our resident corporate guru, having been in corporate America a long and proficient career. And Lori is our financial and also corporate wizard. And my claim to fame is I've just been here longer than everybody else.
Well,
And he's a very successful real estate broker, but
I was
thank
going to
you.
say, you have a little bit more to bring on your perspective there. Go ahead.
Thank you. But that's just a quick backstory. Cara, go ahead with,
Thank you.
one other quick comment that I thought of while you were speaking is, now crap, I just thought I dropped it. It'll come back to me. Go ahead, Cara.
so 3212, as we know, was a section that we had to reorganize. When I was doing these slides, I tried to combine different sections together so that would flow more easily in a format for educational purposes. And in retrospect, because 3212 is so material dense, I think that I should probably go back and put in some cross references, not necessarily on the slide that we're looking at right now, but on some of the other slides as to the very specific code section, just by number, so that if somebody is trying to use the educational materials to either respond to a complaint or bring a complaint later on, along with the citizens guide that we've done, they can actually find the sections more easily. And that's something I think for this section, because it's easy to get lost in the numbers, we probably should do that cross-reference, not necessarily read it out in the educational program, but just have it in the slides themselves. And we may want to think about that for some of the other material dense sections as well. So, so the first slide we're looking at is a very short summary of all the different powers and duties that the board has. And advisory opinions, investigate complaints, conduct hearings. So then if we go on to the next one, just a brief summary of advisory opinions. And I don't think we do a lot of advisory opinions, but it's there in case anybody ever wants to ask us for one now or in the future. And then Brian, if I guess we go on the next. Okay, so I tried to break down the complaint procedure into its most important points. And just so Patricia understands, in recent years, the board has encountered situations where people try to use us as a sword for their own purposes. And sometimes they will leak to the local paper that they are going to file a complaint. Whether they actually file the complaint or not, sometimes they will leak that. So for the board, confidentiality is key because this process is a multi-step process. The first part is us determining whether there's a basis to bring the complaint. And then the next step is with the investigating panel, which we'll get to. And then the last step is an actual hearing on probable cause. The first two steps are supposed to be confidential because if someone doesn't have a good faith basis or there isn't probable cause to bring a complaint, then you don't want to ruin someone's reputation. So it's very important to the board that there be confidentiality. So,
Car, quick recommendation while we're on the slide is because nobody ever reads to the end. They always start with the beginning. Maybe we start with be confidential. I know you mentioned be in writing and on the required complaint form.
yep.
But maybe because the confidentiality is first and foremost, even before they file a complaint,
Mhm.
maybe when we are presenting it and on the slide, we had that at the top.
Yep. I can reverse the order.
I like how you summarize the content on this page. It's good.
Yeah.
And then something else I thought of that's not specific to any one of our presentations, it's the overall presentation, is this presentation is going to last longer than the life of some of us serving on this board. And so I don't know from a legalese standpoint, if we did video of ourselves doing the presentation, if that can continue to be property of the Board of Ethics and used, years to come, or if it would be better for us to do voiceover stuff. And this way, it'd be great if all of us last another 10 years, but it's likely that there will be some turnover on this board, as there always has been. And I don't want to have to redo this document when somebody, resigns from the board. So I want us to keep that in mind too, for Assistant Corporation Counsel, I don't know if we need to sign any releases or anything, or if this can live past our participation. That's just something that jumped in my mind. Proceed, Cara.
Okay, so if you want to move on to the next slide. Okay, so once again, I just broke this down into the very first step, which is the board determining whether a complaint should be accepted or not, and all the reasons to reject a complaint. That's sort of self-explanatory. I think the last one, very last bullet point, a pattern of conduct resulting in an abusive process or interference with the board, just so Patricia understands where that comes from. If someone, hypothetically speaking, is filing multiple complaints against multiple people without a basis, it can become unduly burdensome. especially if they're doing it for their own purposes. So that's
That
why we have
happens.
that language in there. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right. And then the next step. Oh, yeah. So we go through the rejection of the complaint, and then
What's for Brian?
yeah, I mean, we don't have to belabor every section, but yep. So this is the rejection of the complaint. And once again, this reiterates the bad faith or the untruthfulness or the vexatious nature, because we don't want anybody harassed with multiple complaints that may not have a good faith basis, which is something that has happened in other municipalities in the area. Most recently, Stamford, and also there's a question about what just went on in New Canaan, if you've seen the paper lately. Okay, and then the next slide. Okay, and then the next step is the investigating panel. And the investigating panel, over the course of the next several slides, I go through the whole process of the investigating panel. So the investigating panel is the first panel that meets to review the complaint and all the allegations and determine whether there is probable cause or not. And I don't think Brian has to hit every slide in this, but there's multiple slides that break it down. And so this whole process with the investigating panel is entirely confidential. If and several slides into the second step, there you go. We talk about what happens if you breach the confidentiality, and the complaint can be dismissed entirely, and someone can be banned from filing future complaints due to breach of confidentiality. So
What happens, have you ever run into, by the way, if the board ourselves, you're investigating something and you need to talk to someone else? So confidentiality with purpose in terms of you might have to widen the circle more than just the complainant and this
Yeah.
panel. Has that ever happened?
Yeah,
So
so
this
as
is,
part of the-
so
Go ahead.
we're making these discussions based on hypotheticals. It's the policy of the Board of Ethics that the board will not confirm nor deny whether ethics complaints or investigations have been undertaken. So all of these discussions that we're having now are in the hypothetical format.
Yep,
Okay.
and also, I didn't start this off, I generally do with new board members, is if we're ever asked, family, friends, especially public, but we don't confirm or deny if we're actively in a investigative, or if we had 6 last year, 0 last year, 20 last year. We don't confirm or deny. It is, we do our job, and our standard line is we don't confirm or deny if we have anything going on right now.
Oh, yeah, no, that wasn't actually what
but-
I was asking. I
No,
was
no,
just
no, no.
asking if
So
you have
to go to what you were asking,
Yeah.
in a hypothetical sense, is the investigative panel can request, depending on what the complaint is, if there's another, witness, somebody else that might have knowledge, we can reach out through any means necessary to request they come meet with us, give us backstory. So yes, you can broaden the scope. It is to be maintained confidentially when you speak to them, but yes, it's more than just the complainant and the complaintor.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you,
this
Brian.
this whole section of step 2 is a good example of where I think I need to just put in the cross reference to the individual sections,
Mhm.
so that if anybody's using these materials in the future to help them draft a complaint or understand the process better, they know exactly where in the Code of Ethics all of this information appears.
Fair.
Okay.
as we're approaching 8, I think we have a good feel of the respective slides that we've done. I just want to take a minute or a few minutes to open it up to initial thoughts based on seeing different slides. I think, you know, to Lori and Geraldo's point, as we go back now in this next month, my recommendation or thought, and this is open, this is just an initial thought, is that the ones, so I know in Cara's specific instance, she wants to add some stuff. I almost think sometimes it's better to get, you know, my pod should go to Lori and Geraldo's pod should come to me. You know, Mickey and Cara can switch, and then Pat has the luxury of just being the supervisor of all. Sometimes that's less work, sometimes that's more. You can understand that. But is because I think with repetitive eyes, you'll get the same product. So without having all of us edit everybody's slide and then have 5 different edits for the same slide or pod, I think it's better if we continue to have it broken out. But I am open to thoughts from you guys. Don't all chime in at once.
Yeah, I think we should look at somewhere that you can simplify. You should just exchange it with one person, and if somebody reviewed it, otherwise you're going to have different things to come to the meeting, and you have more than one comment about the same thing, and which one do you fit? So I think doing that could simplify the process. Then when we come to a general meeting, you can get other input.
Excellent. Mickey, what say you on this?
I don't really have an opinion one way or the other, whether we do it as a whole body to look through each one in more detail at the next meeting, which I really hope is a present meeting and rather than Zoom meeting. I hate these Zoom meetings, which you all know. The other sort of administrative point I wanted to make was that, you know, today's day and age, when we're drafting things from our individual computers, everybody has a slightly different font. And I don't know if that's important to have all these fonts the same, but if we do, we can just pick a name of a font and use the same font. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I would agree for, you know, for the final report. So to minimize editing, we should just recommend something on the format and so with the font and the, you know, the size, etc. And even indentation, what are we doing?
Yes.
Other things look the same. Are we going to use bullets? Are we using ABCs? So.
Noted.
Neutral on it.
Love neutral people. We're all neutral on this.
I just wanted to be
I'm a
consistent.
sponge.
You turn pages and you see, hey, it's in red and white.
All right, so since we're all neutral, why don't we best practice or the best time efficiency, if you will, for moving forward this next month is Geraldo and Lori, if you could finish your pod in the next week or two, and then I will be happy to be your partner in that.
We're finishing days. So
Say again?
we'll aim for days and not weeks.
It's Memorial Day weekend. I want to be respectful, not say Tuesday.
Yeah.
And have everybody at your Memorial Day party mad at me because you're
And we said days could be 7. So
and then Mickey and Cara, why don't you guys switch your pods and, you know, just converse slightly over it. Again, I don't want you guys to be spending 5, 10, 15 hours on this initially. It's let's just get a cursory thing to present to us next meeting. Next meeting, hopefully we can then at least roughly finalize a pod, not the whole thing, and figure out, talk through the presentation part of it, the minutes part of it. And then Pat, I think for you initially, what I'd like you to do is just read through the code of ethics, read through the citizens guide.
Yeah.
That we're not changing,
Okay.
but read through that, get comfortable with that a little. Feel free to ask questions for interpretations as you read through it. And then also by doing that, when we come back to next month's meeting and we're looking at these pods, if you will, you'll have had that fresh in your mind that you can say, oh, I think we're missing something. You know, that was important that I just read that I want to make sure is in this presentation. And also what I keep coming back to initially, as you heard me say when the meeting started, I was critical or reluctant to regurgitate the same material that's in the citizens guide. At the same time, because we're presenting it in another format, we have to think that somebody might only go to the YouTube or the video format and not go to the code of ethics or the citizens guide. So even though it might be redundant, and we can allude, point people in the direction of the code of ethic and the citizens guide, we have to feel that this is a one-off. This is the training that we are going to be putting out there. And so even though it might be regurgitating the citizens guide, essentially, that might be what the purpose of this exercise is. Does that seem to follow or make sense with you folks?
Yes, yep.
Yes.
Excellent. Is there anything else any comments or discussion prior to logging off?
Next meeting is Thursday, June 23rd.
Sweet.
Thank you.
And actually, Brian, what's the process with the city of seeing if we can get back into room 101 or one of the rooms?
I could certainly reach out to them. I know that some of the meetings, for example, the Common Council had a meeting where most were there, a couple attended virtually. I will reach out to Zolma in the mayor's office and find out how we go about getting your meeting back in room 101.
If you could do that, and just while we're on the Zoom for all of us, I don't want to pigeonhole anybody. Does anybody have an issue or feel uncomfortable with getting in person if we take proper precautions, and if we're not feeling well, don't show up?
I would like to be able to continue remotely. I have a situation that
Yep.
I'd rather be remote.
Yep.
I'd like
So
to
what we
participate.
can
Be
do,
hybrid.
yeah, what we can do is I can reach out to Zolma to find out if there's a particular room at City Hall that would allow the in-person / hybrid to do that. Obviously, it can be done in the Common Council chambers because they've done it. I don't know if there's other rooms, but I will inquire from mayor's office about what rooms have that capability.
Okay.
And thank you for that. And also, just off the top of my head, I'm not very tech savvy, but possibly if one of us brings a laptop and connects to the City Hall Wi-Fi, we can have Geraldo tune into that and, have the video of us who's at the table. And for anybody else that's home or not feeling well or didn't have a chance to get to City Hall, we can log in and, see and participate just the same way. Pat, do you have comforts, issues?
I'm fine either way. I work in hybrid. I've, lived on Zoom like everybody else for the last few years. So I'm comfortable with Zoom, and I'm comfortable in person as well.
Okay, excellent.
I'll be remote for that meeting.
Sweet. So let's it's not confirmed that it's in person, Brian, but
Right.
let's look into it.
Yeah.
And then just let me know, and then I'll reach out to the collective. I do prefer in person at this point. I think Zoom has been great. But even to the point of getting to know Pat, I always felt we gelled better when we were in person and could have additional conversations. It's hard to talk when we're on Zoom and build the relationships that we've had. For most of us, we've been together for many years, but it's still nice to get back in person and reestablish those bonds, etc. So if we can, if not June, perhaps as we get to the fall meetings, that is something that I would like to get back to for the greater good of us. Anything else before we call tonight? Excellent. Thank you all again for today. Thank you for doing this homework. It is rare that we have homework, but it's a necessary evil right now to maximize our time in these meetings so we don't take them till 10, 11 at night. So I appreciate all your participation. I appreciate you making the efforts and feedback. And I hope everybody has a happy Memorial Day weekend. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second. I
Geraldo
second.
seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Right?
Any opposed? Abstained? Excellent. Everybody have a happy Memorial Day. Thank you
Thank you.
again.
You
Brian.
too.
Happy
Take care.
Memorial Day, everybody.
Enjoy
Be
the
safe.
weekend.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Welcome, Pat.
Thank you.